You're watching World Compass TV News at 10. I am Miriam.
And I am Cedra.
On the news tonight, Senate sets the stage for e-voting and e-transmission of election results as it reverses itself in Electoral Act Amendment Bill. The President promises to build a more resilient economy, also to implement fiscal measures to improve domestic revenues and mobilizes external funding. One soldier killed as police and army repel attack by gunmen at the venue of All Progressive Black Alliance rally in Anambra State. On business news, International Monetary Fund revises global growth outlook for 2021, projects 5.9% for Nigeria's economy. On the sports news, Super Falcon coach Randy Waldron picks 23 players for the 2022 Women's African qualifying fixtures against the Black Queen of Ghana later this month. And from the Federal Capital Territory, it's a sad day in Kaduna State as government invades school, adopt 3 students from St. Albert's Catholic Seminary. Now the news in full. The Senate has vowed to pressure and make a U-turn in a decision on the electronic transmission of electoral results by the Independent National Electoral Commission. This comes against its earlier position in which INEC was allowed to consider e-transmission results only if the national network coverage was certified, adequate, and secured by the National Communication Commission and approved by the National Assembly. But at the resumption of plenary for the week, the upper chambers empowered the electoral empire to determine the procedure for the transmission of results during the election. The Electoral Act Amendment Bill is one of the most polarizing pieces of legislation in the 9th Assembly Clause 52, which refers to electronic transmission of results, split lawmakers in the Senate, sharply along party lines to the extent that the division was called on the votes for the first time in the 9th Assembly. Briefing journalists after the plenary, Senate spokesperson throws more light on the amendment of the Electoral Act Bill.
Voting at an election and transmission of results under this bill shall be in accordance with the procedure determined by the Commission.
Those in favor of Clause 52 as amended, say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. Ayes.
The Senate latest amendment of the Section 52 to empower INEC to determine the procedures of transmission of results during election is sure to delight many Nigerians and those in the civic space who have been agitating for a reversal of the earlier decision. Meanwhile, the Rivers State Governor, Nyesom Wike, reacted to today's decision by the Senate on the e-transmission of election results as a welcome development. Governor Wike says, if adopted by INEC, the process will build trust in the electoral system, thereby reducing the rates of electoral violence and litigations of the country. He, however, urged the National Assembly not to decide for political parties the method to be adopted in the conduct of the primary election following the recommendation and some clauses in the Electoral Act Repeal and Reenactment Bill. On to legal matters. The 300-level mass communication student of the University of Lagos, Chidinma Ojukwu, and one Adedapo Quadri, both key suspects in the alleged murder of the Chief Executive Officer of Super TV, Osifo Ataga, has been arraigned before a Lagos High Court sitting in Tafawa Balewa Square. The murder was said to have been committed in the service apartment in Lekki area of Lagos. Following the advice of the Lagos State Director of Public Prosecution, PPP, the police withdrew from the prosecution of Chidinma others indicted in the murder of late Osifo Ataga. The DPP, Mrs. Olayinka Adeyemi, swiftly filed a 9-count charge against Chidinma, a suspected key accomplice Adedapo Quadri, and his sister Chioma Eguchi, from whom the late Ataga iPhone 7 was said to have been recovered. In the charge dated August 31st. Chidinma and Adedapo, listed as the first and second defendants, were named in counts 1 to 7, bordering on offences of conspiracy, murder, and forgery. They were specifically alleged to have murdered Ataga by stabbing him several times on the neck and chest with a knife. The charge also specifically alleged that they procured false access and UBA bank account statements of the late attacker. They also allegedly forged an international passport and a driver's license in Chidima's name. Chidima was named as the sole defendant in count 8 for committing the offense of stealing. She allegedly stole 2 iPhones, an iPhone 7 and an iPhone 11, 1 Apple MacBook laptop, and ATM cards of Access and GT banks belonging to the late Osifo Wataga, from which the sum of 380,000 naira was subsequently withdrawn. In count 9, Chidima's sister Chioma Eguchi was charged with being in possession of the stolen iPhone 7. When all the counts were read to the defendant, they all pleaded not guilty. After arraignment, Justice Adesoya ordered the continued remand of Chidima and Adedapo in custody, while the sister, Chioma, was allowed to continue the bail earlier granted to her at the magistrate court. The judge has picked 8 trial dates spanning a 2-week period to allow for an accelerated hearing of the case. Still on the judiciary but outside Nigeria, the ex-leader of the movement for the emancipation of Niger Delta, Henry, has lost yet another bid to get out of jail. He has brought 3 applications before Judge Magbizala of the Johannesburg High Court in September, 1 for bail, 1 for leave to appeal his conviction, and another for reservation on a question of law. He opted to start with a bail application, saying he needed to be free in order to challenge his conviction. He said issues like standing conviction and sentence on the likely resident while on bail and the safety and security of Mr. Oka while on bail. Judge Magbizala also pointed out that the issue of keloid, a skin condition Mr. Oka is suffering from, is not life-threatening, as his own doctor has told the court. Mr. Oka thanks the court for a fair hearing. However, he told his wife Azuka, who was present in court, that he will be headed to a Supreme Court of Appeal next. The COVID-19 booster may be necessary for the residents to stay safe from the global pandemic. This is according to the Lagos State Commissioner for Health, Professor Akin Abayomi, who announces this during a brief ahead of the 7th One Health and Biosecurity Conference. Professor Abayomi says the state government plans to vaccinate 30% of its residents by the end of the year, and says the conference will address biosecurity threats as well as other contagious diseases.
You may require a booster, which is a first, second, and then subsequent doses, because we've also discovered that even though the vaccine stops you from getting seriously sick, it may not necessarily stop you from catching COVID. We do know that some people, even who are fully vaccinated with 2 doses, will still catch COVID, and some people, very few, but some people will get quite sick, and occasionally some people may die. But certainly the people that are dying who are not vaccinated are much higher than the people who are dying who have been vaccinated. So we know that the vaccine is certainly protecting populations from severe disease and death. So the question is, as the virus is changing, it may require that we need to give you more than 2 doses. And definitely scientists around the world are toying with that idea that a 3rd or a 4th dose may be required. Now that's not very different from the flu. You all know that the flu vaccine needs to be updated every year if you want to protect yourself. So if you got the flu vaccine last year, you need to get another one this year, because every year the flu itself is mutating. And so what you were vaccinated against last year is not going to protect you from this year's flu. So the same thing with COVID-19. It is possible that over time, the original vaccine is not going to be effective against the mutating virus. And so we will need to develop an updated and upgraded vaccine to protect you from the evolving and the mutating strains of COVID-19.
After the break, the president promises to build a more resilient economy, marking an end to the 2-day midterm ministerial performance review retreat in Abuja. Please stay tuned. Welcome back. be watching the news at 10 on World Compass TV. Remember to follow us on all our social media platforms. We are live on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Our handle is at World Compass Television. A reminder of our top news. Senate sets the stage for e-voting and e-transmission of election results as it reverses itself on Electoral Act Amendment Bill. The President promises to build a more resilient economy, also to implement fiscal measures to improve domestic revenues and mobilize external funding. One soldier killed as police and army repel attack by gunmen at the venue of All Progressive Grand Alliance rally in Anambra State. And today marks the end of the two-day midterm ministerial performance review retreat, where the President promised that his administration will build a more resilient economy, especially as the country recovers from the coronavirus pandemic. The President also instructed the minister to ramp up implementation of their mandate along the 9 priority areas of his leadership. He issued fresh charges to all government officials while outlining a structure to improve the fight against corruption.
In the last 2 years of implementing our policies, programs and projects will serve as the needed tool to propel every ministry to remain committed. I therefore charge all of you to step up, double your efforts, and work in synergy towards total delivery of our administration's set target.
In a bid to advance the national growth trajectory, several sections chaired by guest speakers who took turns to evaluate challenges and suggest lessons to be learned, one of which is high cost of trade. The numbers, which according to the Director General of the World Trade Organization are 1.5 times higher than trade costs in high-income countries. At the end of the two-day retreat, the ministers appeared confident about the outcome.
Nigeria's trade costs are too high. According to the World Bank ESCAP trade cost database for 2019, trade costs for African countries are on average the equivalent of a 304% tariff, and for Nigeria it's even slightly higher at 306%. Such high costs are not conducive to forming regional value chains.
On to security. One person is feared killed after some unidentified gunmen attacked the venue of a rally organized by the All Progressive Grand Alliance, APGA, in Ihiala local government area of Anambra State today. It was gathered that the gunmen stormed Udwata Primary School in 3 vehicles and a number of motorcycles. Commenting on the incident, the State Commissioner for Information denied that Governor Abiyanu's convoy was attacked. He explained that following the exchange of fire between the gunmen and security forces, the attackers fled into a nearby hospital premises directly opposite the campaign ground. The police spokesperson of the Anambra Command says a combined team of policemen and military personnel repelled the attack and recovered 1 AK-47 rifle, 2 magazines with 30 rounds of ammunition and 4 vehicles. He also added that normalcy has been restored to the area and asked residents to report anyone found with gunshot wounds as the police are currently trailing the fleeing gang members.
3 AK-47 rifles, 9 AK-49 rifles.
36-year-old Abubakar Aliru from Zaria is arrested for allegedly setting up his cousin, 48-year-old Binta Amza, for abduction after he refused to pay back the loan she gave him to purchase 4 tricycles for his business.
Aliru, clearly not intending to return to pay back this loan, lured this relative of his out of Zaria, and in that process simply handed over Binta to a gang of kidnappers.
We continue with security, but this time in Kaduna State, where gunmen suspected to be kidnappers have attacked St. Albert, the Great Institute of Philosophy, a Catholic church-owned seminary in Jebas local government area. The gunmen were said to have abducted 3 students before the arrival of local vigilantes, who were able to repel and prevent them from taking away more students. It was gathered that on Monday night, the government invaded the school and started shooting sporadically, creating panic among students and staffs. The spokesman of the State Police Command, Mohammed Jaligi, posted the number of students kidnapped at 3, with 2 others injured, adding that a tactical team has visited the school to get more details about the incident. Our correspondent Hasna. Meanwhile, 3 members of the gang allegedly responsible for the kidnap of 8 people from the National Center for Tuberculosis and Leprosy Supporters in Kaduna have been arrested by the police. Parading the suspect in Abuja alongside 45 others, the first public relations officer, Frank Oba, says the gang also kidnapped and killed a female pharmacist at the Ahmadu Bello University Teaching Hospital in Zaria.
It's not a lucky day for these suspects now in police custody. 48 of them in total are being paraded for various offences.
When the news at 10 returns, the International Monetary Fund cuts global growth outlook, projects Nigeria economy to grow by 5.9% this year. That is some business news. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Business News. The International Monetary Fund has trimmed its global growth outlook, citing persistent supply chain disruptions, prices, and pressure as constraints to recovery in its world economic outlook. The IMF cut its 2021 global growth forecast to 5.9% from the 6.0% forecast it made in July. It left its 2022 global growth forecast unchanged at 4.9%. The statutory meetings are majorly held behind closed doors with governors of central banks and finance ministers of member countries in attendance. It is basically to discuss the world economic outlook growth issues, inflation, exchange rate, and financial system stability issues in different countries. One of the major highlights is to forecast the world economy, which has been downgraded to 5.9% from July forecast of 6.0% as global recovery continues but momentum weakens. Now on sport news. Super Falcons coach Randy Waldron has called 23 Super Falcons players to camp in preparation for their 2022 Women Africa qualifying fixtures against the Black Queens of Ghana on October 20th in Lagos. The first leg will be played at the Mobola Johnson Arena in Oniko, while the return leg will be played in Accra on October 24th. Still on sports, Barcelona has been given the green light to fill their new stadium to capacity for key Champions League and La Liga matches next week after Catalonian authorities earlier today eased the COVID-19 crowd limit from 60% capacity. The decision is timely, for struggling Barcelona have 3 games coming up in 8 days of the 99,000 capacity. And that will be all on Sport News.
Before we go on the main news again, Senate sets the stage for e-voting and e-transmission of election results as it reverses itself on the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. The President promises to build a more resilient economy, also to implement fiscal measures to improve domestic revenue and mobilize its external funding. 1 soldier killed as police and army repel attack by gunmen at the venue of All Progressive Grand Alliance rally in Anambra State. That will be all for today at the News at 10. I am Miriam.
And I am Shekin.
Thanks for watching.
Please listen and have a good night.
When it comes to reducing the spread of COVID-19, we all have a role to play. By staying vigilant and following a few important tips, we'll stay safe together. Proper hand hygiene and not touching your face are critical. Wash your hands often with soap and water, especially after you've been in a public place. If soap and water are not available, use a hand sanitizer. Another critical but simple safety guideline is social distancing. Set an example by not gathering in groups or in crowded places and keep a minimum of 6 feet away from others when in public. You should also stay vigilant by cleaning and disinfecting your home regularly, especially frequently touched surfaces. For example, objects like doorknobs, light switches, and faucets, or surfaces like countertops, tables, and desks, and even technology like your phone, keyboards, and remote controls. Remember that following these universal guidelines and reminding your friends and families to do the same will lessen the impact and spread of COVID-19.
Using a smartphone while driving is dangerous. We've seen and heard the ad campaigns, public service announcements, social media, and accident reports. We know there are fatal accidents caused by distracted drivers on smartphones happening every day, but far too many of us still do it. Maybe we think we're just better at it than other people, right? But we're not. Smartphones take our hands off the wheel, take our eyes off the road, and take our minds a million miles away. And that's not a good place to go while driving. Wait, hands-free devices and voice-to-text features are safe to use, right? Think again. Science has proven that multitasking is a myth. How about just sending a quick text? How quick? 5 seconds? In 5 seconds, at 55 miles per hour, you've traveled the length of a football field without looking. In that time, you could have swerved out of your lane, veered off the road, or hit another vehicle. What about a stoplight? In a stopped vehicle, we could get rear-ended, sideswiped, hit by a bike, hit a pedestrian, or get startled by a horn. It's never safe to text and drive. If a text needs to be sent, find a safe location. Pull over, text. Nothing ever needs to be sent while driving. It's okay to drive a vehicle without doing anything else at the same time, but if you have trouble resisting the small shiny object, decide ahead of time you're not going to use your phone. Put your phone somewhere you can't touch or hear it, or turn your phone's volume to silent. If your phone has a Do Not Disturb feature, turn it on. Even better, use an app that prevents texting while driving. If you use your phone's GPS, consider a windshield mount and set your GPS destinations before you start driving. If you absolutely must use your cell phone, pull over and stop at a safe location. Let's all put our phones away and just drive.